bespoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Welcome. Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Look at the gifts. Today's Monday, June 5th, 155 days into the new year, just 210 days left. I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? It's Monday. Yeah, man. Start of another week here on Fade to Black. Now, tonight, it's about time. Very special guest, Mary Rodwell, is here, live from Australia. She is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network. Also, one of the stars in the new film, Gods Among Us. Tomorrow night, Michael Lee Hill is back, and he's going to talk with us about his connection to Bigelow Aerospace. As we know, Robert Bigelow was on 60 Minutes last week. Well, we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. Wednesday night, we're going to talk and have a very special broadcast presenting the Disclosure Fest, which is taking place in downtown Los Angeles on Saturday, June 17th at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles, California. I'm going to speak on that Saturday, I think around noon or so. Go to the website, check it out, the schedule. It is a huge park. Tickets are free. All you have to do is just go to their website, register, and get yourself tickets. All right? It's a free event. It's going to be jam-packed, but we're going to have a worldwide meditation live. All right? Disclosure Fest 2017. This is a big event, state-sponsored event, California. Lots of meditation and yoga, yogis running around, and cool vendors and food, and two main stages and a bunch of tents. So with different events going on in each one. So come and hang out with it. It's free, right? Right in downtown Los Angeles. How cool. 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. at night, and lots of music. Just come on down and hang out with us. All right? It's free. So we'll get everything up there. If you go to our website, everything is posted up there. And then, of course, Thursday is another Fader Night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom live. It's that simple. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do, at JChurchRadio. Facebook, YouTube, everything is Fade to Black. And go follow us, like us, subscribe to the YouTube channel. And it's all simple. Okay? All the archives are up there. If you ever need an archive to the show, there's so many different ways to do it. The podcast, the membership area, iHeartRadio, YouTube, everything is out there. And we just try to make it accessible to everybody very, very easily. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments during the show? Hashtag F2BQ. You want to hang out in the sandbox on Twitter? Hashtag F2B. Email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Okay. Oh, man. The world is in flux, isn't it? Now, this weekend, Rita and I escaped. We went out of town. And while we were in transit, we got the news of what was transpiring over in Great Britain on the London Bridge. So we did that, and we followed it for as long as we could, because then immediately after that, we checked out and didn't monitor the news. I didn't want to. It just affects you, doesn't it? Well, it affected us. And then on the way back into town, into Los Angeles, well, we checked back in. It was like, wow, that's right. And so our thoughts are with everybody over in London. There's so much other breaking news out of the Middle East right now with Qatar. And I've got all of that, and we'll talk about that in just a bit. All right? Okay, don't forget, this month, if you become a member, this month, if you go to our membership area, everybody listening to my voice right now, if you haven't become a member, go and do it. It's simple. Go to our membership area on the website. You can start with free and go all the way through to the Game Changer, where you get an autographed hat and you get the bunker cam and T-shirt and stuff like that. But this month, we're going to be giving away a Life Change Tea package, courtesy of our sponsor, Life Change Tea. Okay, so that's what's going to happen this month. But the only way to get to it is go and become a member over in our membership area. So go and do that. An alternative to that, if you want to help support the show, just subscribe to our podcast, $2 a month. Over 650 archive shows. What are we up to now? 668 shows. Man, we're going to crack 700 here in a minute. Crazy. So you can go do all of that podcast, $2 a month, apps, everything that you need, and it's there, or the membership area. And when you're over on our website, please visit all of our sponsors and Life Change Tea, GetTheTea.com, River Moon Coffee, Studio Dome Speakers, Ancient Life Oil, CBD. That's right. So we have Ancient Life Oil over there, and pretty soon here in the next couple, we'll see. We're ready to go. We're working with a company for night vision, and they are called Bearing Optics. Okay, so that information, as soon as we get everything ready, it's a big company, but we'll have all of that going as well, and very cool discounts for the Fadernauts on all that night vision gear that you want. And there you go. Okay, so that's coming up too as well. And that's it. Now, I do want to make a couple of announcements. I just talked about Disclosure Fest. This is a mass meditation initiative. It's on Saturday, June 17th at the Los Angeles State Historic Park in downtown Los Angeles. Tickets are free. All you have to do is register at disclosurefest.com. There's reasons for that. All right? It's called the police, insurance, fire. It's crazy. It's going to be a huge festival right there in downtown Los Angeles on June 17th. I'm going to speak on that Saturday. So that's coming up. And then immediately after that, everybody, the event that we have been waiting for, the bucket list, is we will be at ESETI Ranch for their July 4th Science, Spirit, and World Transformation Conference. And just click on the banner over at our site at jimmychurchradio.com for tickets and info. And there is a few different websites there that you can go to for tickets, info, the conference, the scheduling, and everything else that they've got going on. And it's ESETIevents.com, ESETIevents.com for tickets and info. Okay? All right. Let's see what's going on. Okay, you know what? Let's just jump ahead here. On this day in history. Oh, wait. Happy birthday to. God, I can't forget this because Kenny G today is 61, right? I have to. Why? Because it's just funny. It's like doing Michael Bolton's birthday. I would do that too if it was. Kenny G today is 61. Mark Wahlberg today is 46, and he's going to get, you know what, check this out. First off, he will always make the cut because of Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. That's number one. But number two, the movie Rockstar, he was amazing in, and I love that movie. But I Heart Huckabees. Forget about all these other movies that he's in, whatever, you know. But I Heart Huckabees is an amazing film, and he is great in that. But The Departed's one of the great films ever made. Seriously. And he is unbelievable in that. So, I'll say it. Mark Wahlberg, happy birthday, 46 years old. On this day in history, OTD, are you ready? Are you sitting down? Listen to this. On this day in history, in 1933, FDR takes the United States off the gold standard and starting one of the greatest conspiracy theories of all time. That happened on this day in 1933. But in 1967, the 6-Day War begins, right? Think about that. Also on this day in history, in 1968, a year later, Bobby Kennedy is assassinated right here in Los Angeles, California. And then on this day in history, in 2004, on this day, Ronald Reagan dies. And on the very same day, Jennifer Lopez marries Mark Anthony. So tell me this isn't the great conspiracy day of them all. Right? I had to throw that in there. Fate or fact. There are more stars in the universe than words ever uttered by all humans who ever lived. Think about that. And that is a fate or fact. All right. Tonight we have Mary Rodwell here live from Australia. I am so looking forward to this conversation tonight. She is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network. Tomorrow night, the return of Michael Lee Hill. We're going to talk about Bigelow Aerospace and his contact with Bigelow. Wednesday night, we're going to talk about Disclosure Fest. We're going to have the promoters and producers of the event on the show and a couple of speakers that are going to be there. So we're going to do that and talk about Disclosure Fest on Wednesday night. And then, of course, Thursday is No More Fake Newsroom Live with John Rappaport and followed by Open Lines. Now, today, I had a very, very, very long conversation with a friend of mine, and you know, one of the leading researchers out there, one of the most respected people in ufology and in general in our circle. We had a long conversation, and we talked for a couple hours, and the conversation was because I needed to talk to somebody. I needed to go on the couch. I just wanted to talk about how I was feeling about a couple of things. Now, if you are new to ufology, and when I say new, if you were not around 20 years ago, 21 years ago, 22 years ago, to experience what the world went through, maybe even 25 years ago and before, if you were not around for some very significant events, and I'm talking about the MJ-12 documents, and I'm going to talk about that in a second, the alien autopsy film. If you weren't around for any of that, then you may not understand what I'm saying now. So I'm going to go through those events a little bit, and there's a reason for that. I feel like we've been infiltrated. I feel like it's beyond the realm of possibilities that so many things are happening at the same time in ufology and disclosure. It's a pretty crazy situation that's going on right now. And I'm going to name names, okay? I'm just going to go on the record and say that today we have some people out there that are attacking Gaia and attacking the media, that are saying things about, you have this John Ventry idiot over at MUFON, And so you have that situation and how that has spun out of control. And we have Rendlesham Forest and our good friend Peter Robbins and what is going down with another friend of the show, Larry Warren, and that being front page news over in the UK. There's that situation, and that's pretty crazy. We have CITD and people out there talking about that and how, I mean, I'm not even going to get into specifics, and of course, Corey Good is being spoken about out there right now. And there's more. I mean, that's just a partial list, but it's all happening at the very same time over the last 2 weeks. And so, I made a phone call today. I said, does this remind you of like the MJ-12 documents, right? Do you guys last year with the Roswell slides or whatever that was 2 years ago? That was a pretty crazy situation with Jaime Maussan and the images and making money and selling out the auditorium down there. And as it turned out to be, it was a mummy. And I had warned everybody going into this, be careful. This could really spin out of control, and it did. But as crazy as the Roswell slides debacle was from a couple of years ago, pales in, it's a non-story compared to the MJ-12 documents and what had happened there. The situation that we're going through today with all of this upheaval and everything, it feels as crazy as what went down with the MJ-12 documents and also the alien autopsy film. And the MJ-12 documents, and I'm talking about William Moore and Jamie Chandray, of course, Stanton Friedman was involved, and a whole list of others too as well. But the MJ-12 documents and the way that they were brought out and the way that they, if you think about it, the internet was totally different back then. UFOlogy was different back then. And William Moore, who was there at the beginning of Roswell, and Chandray, this TV producer from Burbank, and Stanton being Stanton, coming in and putting his name on this situation. The MJ-12 documents to this day are talked about. I mean, were they real? Were they not? You have the Twining memo, and Stanton has said on this show and also publicly that he can stand by one of the documents, but everything else, but it turned the world upside down. And we are talking about the naming of names and people and going back to Roswell and the whole committee and everything else. Well, there are some today that think that everything is authentic. But what happened? What was the amazing turn of events was how William Moore, Jamie Chandray, I don't even know if he's alive today. I don't even know if he's around. If he is, he's old. But William Moore confessed and said that he was part of a disinfo campaign. He did this at, I believe it was at MUFON, at the symposium or at a big conference. And he turns and announces this, runs out the back door, and he's lucky that he wasn't lynched that day. And I believe that today William Moore lives in a trailer somewhere in Pennsylvania, and he's a janitor at a junior high school, never to be seen from again. William Moore at that time was not only an author, but he was leaking documents, and he was at the front of all of this stuff that was happening in ufology. And it turned the community upside down. Turned it upside down. It was a harsh thing for everybody to go through. And today, Stanton had to weather that storm. There were other names that were involved. And here we are today. Now, that phase of things is behind us. Ray Santilli, the alien autopsy film, which turned out to be a complete hoax, made millions, tens of millions of dollars. Ray Santilli from the music industry could care less about ufology. He came in, did this hoax, sold the videotape, and again, turned out to be a complete hoax, ruined some careers, it affected people in Hollywood, but he didn't care. He just took the money and run and laughed. And again, it was a real black eye for ufology, but ufology survived. And now this new generation that is beyond the old school, and I'm talking about some brilliant and great respected people out there, and Dolan is at the front of this, but we have the entire Ancient Aliens crew and Barra and Wilcock and a new generation of us that is coming through now. And what we are experiencing for the first time is our own crisis, like the MJ-12 dilemma. And it was harsh. MJ-12 was a huge, huge thing. And today, that's what we're dealing with. And it's happening all at the same time. Now, this is where it gets crazy for me. About 3 months ago, leading up to, it was about a month and a half, 2 months before Contact in the Desert, over about a 3 or 4 day period, I was warned by 3 different people, 3 individuals who do not know each other and that come from different parts of ufology, just not connected with each other, but that all warning me that things were about to go nuts and for me to be careful, that and I started to get involved with some email, and I was seeing some things and I was like, really? Nah, you know what? Who cares? Right? It's whatever. I'm not going to concern myself with it. But if you think the White House has a leaky boat, okay, with everybody out there that is starting stuff today, and I hope that some of them are listening to me right now, there are people directly connected. I'm talking about friends, right? That are literally sharing their emails and their conversations with other people. And I'm reading this. I'm like, really? Right? Okay. And I was when I was told, and I just kind of backed up and said, whatever. I don't care. I don't care. But it all happened. It just did. And now I'm sitting back. I didn't think that it was going to affect people, the way I'm talking about the audience and the people out there that study this and go to the conferences and hang out. And it's a different world today. And the way that social media runs and Twitter and everything else, the way that it runs, and YouTube and Facebook and all that stuff, the way that it runs, it's an instantaneous effect. It's an instantaneous response. And the way that emotions have been affected is strange to me. Now, I was speaking with Rita earlier today about this, and over our morning coffee, and about MJ-12 and the alien autopsy and what that was like and how big of a thing it was back then. And Rita said, well, you know what? It's different today. The community is bigger. We are connected all around the world, all at the same time, and the way that people look at things, they just read, and they share, and it's an instantaneous world out there. And I'm going to tell you right now, although that is true, the man also knows this, and I'm here to tell you there is something. If the best way to go and get some disinformation going and get this community divided and start pointing fingers and try to collapse things, you've got social media, and you can do it right now. There is no way this community will continue. It survived MJ-12. It survived the alien autopsy. It survived the Roswell slides. It survived William Moore. It just did. And others out there too as well. And it's going to continue. MUFON will continue, right? Gaia TV, Gaia is going to continue. You know, Contact in the Desert will be there next year. And on and on and on. Corey, David Wilcock. David has weathered so many. This community has a way of fixing itself. And when I posted what I posted last week, I meant it. We have a way of fleshing out our own, and we will figure it out on our own. People are going to believe and trust what they want to believe and trust, and they are going to continue that. None of this stuff that is out there and again, this is just a partial list. There's a lot of it going on. None of it is going to affect anybody in a way that suddenly somebody's going to stop believing in. It's not going to happen like that. The positive attitude and what is real, people are still going to be interested in the facts. They're still going to be interested on what's going on in the skies. They're still going to be doing their night vision. They're still going to be summoning. They're still going to be channeling. They're still going to believe in what they have seen, right? None of that is going to change. It's simply not. The community will survive. We will get through this. This bump in the road, which is what it is being caused by a few individuals out there that may or may not know each other. Maybe it's all on a united front. I don't know. But it's not going to work. That's the thing. It's simply not going to work. I was surprised that everything that I was told 3 months ago actually happened. That I just thought it was just talk. Right? It was just whatever. But it did. And I find it concerning. We got to ride through this. And with that, tonight, it's going to be a bright and shiny evening. Why? Because we have Mary Rodwell here, live from the UK. All right, we went through some rough emotions this weekend with Great Britain and what's going down in the Middle East, and our very own White House is running amok, and we've got Comey testifying this Thursday. You know, the world is a nutty place. Let's get together tonight. Let's have some fun. Let's welcome Mary Rodwell in here, and let's just have a wonderful conversation. This is Fade to Black. I am your host, Jimmy Church. That's right, flowers hanging out of my pockets. And I will continue to frolic in the mist. And you can join me. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. I'll be right back with Mary Rodwell. You stay right there.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. Let's wind the clocks back 60 years. Food was different. Food provided health and nutrition, and using supplements was minimal. Unfortunately, now we have chemicals, GMOs, herbicides, and pesticides that can be quite lethal in the name of our food supply, and of course the ever-loving dollar. Supplementing our diets can be very important to stay healthy. Cleansing from daily intruders to the body might be critical. Live strong and take charge. Log on to getthetea.com. Our herbal tea is a great way to cleanse from intruders. Our supplements is a great way to maintain and improve your health. When your health is not up to par, go to getthetea.com. No GMOs, no fillers, and organic, and very helpful in keeping you at the top of your game. Life is too short to feel, you know what I mean. Stay in the game, at the top of your game with getthetea.com. That's getthetea.com. Again, getthetea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Win big with KGRA this summer. Tickets and hotel accommodations to the biggest conferences, autographed books and DVDs, chances to win all-inclusive conference cruises, and private dinners with your favorite KGRA hosts. Click the contest tab at kgraradio.com for your chance to win big this summer. Your contact for the best alternative talk radio on the planet. kgraradio.com.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Another Monday, kicking off a great week here on the show. Tonight, Mary Rodwell is here, live from Australia, Queensland. Tomorrow night, Michael Lee Hill joins us. And, of course, Wednesday night, Disclosure Fest LA. Man, that's a huge event. And come and join us. The tickets are free downtown at the historic park in downtown Los Angeles. It's going to be great. Music, fun, some cool speakers, so come and hang out with us down there. Mary Rodwell is a former nurse and midwife and is currently a clinical hypnotherapist, counselor, international speaker, researcher, and author. Her books include Awakening, How Extraterrestrial Contact Can Change Your Life, and The New Human, Awakening to Our Cosmic Heritage. Mary is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network and is the co-founder of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into the Extraterrestrial Encounters, otherwise known as FREE. She offers counseling, information, and support to individuals and their families with anomalous paranormal experiences, specializing in encounters with non-human intelligences. She has worked with over 3,000 cases, including children, which we're going to talk about tonight. And she also appears in the new film, Gods Among Us, The Science of Contact. And I would like to welcome, for the first time, to Fade to Black, the one and only Mary Rodwell. Mary, good afternoon to you, because today is tomorrow. How are you?
Speaking from your future, Jimmy, I'm feeling well and lovely to speak with you.
Absolutely wonderful to have you on the show. The honor is all mine. But you do get the first-time guest disclaimer. Next time you're on the show, you're not going to get it, but you get it tonight, which is, Mary, it's just you and I sitting on my couch talking as friends. Where the conversation starts, it starts. Where it ends, but we're going to end as friends. There you go. You ready?
I'm ready.
You weren't nervous about the disclaimer, were you?
Not in the slightest.
That's what I'm talking about. I don't, with you, Mary, this is what's interesting. Number one, Australia, which has it all. You have ancient civilizations. You have Egyptian contact. You've got ancient cave paintings. You've got the Westall, which is one of the great, right, UFO and contact experiences of all time. You've got your own Area 51. Australia has got everything going on over there, don't you?
We do, and we haven't got too many in the population, which actually makes it even better.
Why is that? So the odds of something happening to somebody are better over in Australia? That's interesting, yes.
Look, you're absolutely right. There is so much more going on in Australia. And the one great thing of living in Australia for me is the openness of people here. Even though you can get, some minds that don't want to open up to very much, a lot of people here generally are pretty open to most things, or at least they'll give you a hearing. And that is what I really enjoy by living here.
The world today is like it's in flux, and we have a lot of talk about not only alien contact and ETs coming from the government and then reaching out for contact and exoplanets and fast radio burst and life on Enceladus, and there's a lot of talk going on, but also contactees are really starting to share their experiences. What do you think is causing that? Is it less fear of talking in public? Is there more ET contact that is going on? What do you think is causing this?
Well, there's lots of theories, and it's a very good point. But what I have noticed, particularly even with the media here, which has been quite heartening, that in the last few years, for whatever reason, whether it's due to the internet, whether it's due to the sharing of information more, there is far greater number of people now prepared to step out of the space closet, as I call it, and actually come out with their experiences. Some will put it down to the fact that in the last few years, there seems to be what we would call an activation of people. People are being inspired to come out or triggered to come out as part of their mandate, if you like, almost as though another part of them now knows it's ready to come out and tell their story. I think it's a combination of things. For those that are metaphysically inclined, there seems to be the frequencies that are out there now are almost, in a way, activating people to start to share. And it has been a big thing for those coming out of the closet, as it were, because in my book, The New Human, there are a number of professionals, some with PhDs, one medical doctor that is coming out, having that kind of activation, and from it, completely changing their lives and living a new way. And this seems to have happened very much from being triggered by these frequencies that seem to be hitting us from all sides and are happening, and this is happening globally.
What do you look for specifically when somebody reaches out to you, Mary? I want to talk about children. I think this is an amazing situation that I've been talking about the last few weeks on this show. But when somebody reaches out to you, what specifically are you looking for to know that it is a real contact and a real situation?
Well, primarily, they're writing to me, and this comes from all over the globe, so it's not just one culture. Obviously, I get emails from Europe, I get, from Africa, South America, it is absolutely global. What is interesting, though, for me, is that nobody writes, and especially if their English is a second language, telling me their stories unless there is something very valid in why they're going to the trouble of translating and actually watching the material. Mm-hmm. But what I do is primarily it's about them deciding whether or not this is real for them.
Right.
And that's when I will send out a questionnaire, and I'm saying this is about you making up your own mind whether this is relevant to you. And then from them filling that out, they can then say to me, well, I do think this is relevant. And I will ask them questions that are significant to them, the ones that really resonate with them, why they think that this might be happening to them, and then what do they most need. So it isn't about me assessing them, it's about them assessing themselves and deciding whether or not this is relevant, this is part of their experience, and then what do they do about it, or what do they want to do, where do they want to go with it. And I will ask them, what do you feel you most need? Is it information? Is it, working with you on another level to find out what that missing time was that you had when you were a child, or what you saw or thought you saw when you were, a teenager or whatever. And for some, it's enough to get the information, watch some of my presentations to get a handle on it and to get a sense of whether this is relevant to them. And then from that, if they want to go deeper, we can do hypnosis and we can take it to another level. So it's not about me judging them. It's about them deciding whether or not this is relevant to them. And if it is, how can I help?
What is consistent to you, where the, you speak with so many, right? And I know that you're always listening for a few key things, and there are some, I don't want to use the word trend, but some consistent messages that are out there. And for you, what are you seeing right now? And is there anything alarming?
Well, there's a whole range of things. One of the things that has been really important when I put things together, like a questionnaire, for example, I'm looking for patterns of experience, because there are some really classic things that most people who are having these multidimensional experiences will find resonate with them. And so from those patterns, then I can get a sense of what's actually going on. But what has really been very classic for me is, by working with so many hundreds, now thousands of individuals, is that primarily the main thing that seems to occur is it changes their lives in a multitude of ways. For some, that's very scary because they don't want their lives to change. They don't want to believe this is real. They don't even want to believe there are extraterrestrials out there, because it means they've got to reappraise every bit of their lives. And that is scary. For you to have one belief system, what core beliefs, whether it's religious, whether it's, psychological, whether it's anthropological, you literally have to change your paradigm to accept this is going on and what this means to you on these multiple levels. But what I find is that in itself, not only is it evidence of the reality that they change, but what it seems to be is that most often, once they've come to terms with it and understood it, it can be, for many of them, transformative. There are a number that struggle all the way through. Sometimes they struggle because they're scared of what this means, but they may be scared of what people think of them. They may be scared they're going crazy. All these kinds of fears are not necessarily because of what they think is an agenda, although some will. Some feel very strongly that perhaps these beings are not for their best interests. And it's a very hard one, because for some that feel that, they may actually change their mind down the track and realize that the reason they've had some of these experiences has not necessarily been for a negative outcome, but for one that has changed the way they've seen things or perceived things or whatever. But what is significant for me is that what I always discovered ultimately was the majority found it a positive thing. And that's very hard for those that are going through the trauma, very hard for those that feel they've had no choice and whatever. And it's not for me to tell them what they feel or believe is wrong. What I'm saying is that for some, they do change their mind as they explore this in more depth. And I say to people, you don't believe me, don't believe what other people say about these beings. Go with your own feeling and sensing and how this ultimately may appear to you, or how you may ultimately want to perceive it. What I have discovered is people that go into hypnosis, for example, with one particular thought or perspective, may come out with that perspective changed 380 degrees. It literally is a complete shift in how they've understood it, because they may find there's been healing procedures done, or there's been procedures where they've learnt things or been taught things on the craft, or that they have a relationship with these beings that they never realized they'd actually had on some subconscious, superconscious level. So this can literally change everything they've ever believed. So what I'm saying is what they believe now may not be what they believe or understand after they've come to terms with their experiences and they've explored it. So it can literally change from trauma to this transformative experience. And that was why, my book Awakening is how it can transform your life. It actually does. For some, mostly, 85% it's been for the better. And this has come out through the surveys that we've done with Free, which are very significant, because when you've got 3,000 plus nearly 4,000 individuals saying the same thing, then you have to start taking notice. And that's what we're finding, is that 85% found it ultimately something they wouldn't change and transformative. And this is a big one for those within the field, because for many, many years, it has always been seen most often as a very negative, scary kind of thing. And this is not what's coming through in our research.
With Free and that data there, I can only imagine how compelling it is, right, and comprehensive. But how confidential is it, and where is it sitting?
The great thing with what we're doing is that those that are chairing that, we've got a neuroscientist, Dr. Bob Davis, and a professor of psychology, a retired professor of psychology, Dr. Klimo, for example. They have been putting together through many, using many questionnaires and many researchers and other therapists, etc., what would be the kinds of questions that would ultimately make, you know, a credible academic study. And through that, 600 questions, all anonymous, I might add. Nobody has got any information. We've got no information on identity in any of this. This is people filling it out as they choose to. 600 questions in survey 1 and 2. We've got it in about 5 languages now. The whole idea is that we get this data to start with and start to use to get a real sense of what really is actually going on. The other 2 surveys that we're doing will be in depth with special case studies and what have you, but it's all under the umbrellas of two PhDs that actually know what needs to happen to make this a credible study. And this has been absolutely crucial to get credibility in mainstream, in the universities and what have you. And it's really, really, well, to me, it has been quite astonishing, some of the data that's come out and some of the understanding that's come out from this. And this is all new information. There is no other organization that has done such a comprehensive study. So I think we have to take it very seriously because of the way that it's been done and the credibility of those that have been involved in it.
What kind of trends are you seeing? Interdimensional is something that is talked about a lot, and I understand why. But is there physical things, still going on? I'm talking about actual physical abductions and the famous examination table, right? So what are the trends are you seeing with that data? How is the contact being made these days?
Oh, look, it's all very relevant. The nuts and bolts of ufology has been really important. For the main reason is that it offers something tangible, and we are living in a 3D reality too, and we need the tangibility. So yes, not only, photographs or footage of craft, witness testimony, if there's more than one person having experiences, marks on the body, implants,
right.
Ground traces, they are extremely important. But my whole emphasis has been that I've been working on another level with individuals as a therapist, and the multidimensional side of this experience has not really been appreciated or explored. And you know what? I'm writing an article on this very moment is just this. With all the nuts and bolts, tangible, physical interactions that we're seeing that give this a reality that we can grab a hold of, the answers as to why they're doing it is not there. All it's saying is that it's actually real. The ones that are giving us some sense of why are through their multidimensional experiences. And that is where we've got to start listening to those experiences that they're experiencing either through altered states, or they are aware of going up on the craft on either out of body, sometimes physically, having these experiences where they're having medical procedures, DNA, material taken. But we've got, I think 40% have had real physical healings on these craft as well. And this is, Preston Dennett talks about this in his book, 100 UFO Healings. Wonderful gentleman that is showing there's so much more that's going on than people are aware of. And this is where we'll get some sense of why because the nuts and bolts information doesn't tell us why. It just says it's real. What we need now is the whys. Why are they having such an intimate relationship with humanity? What is the purpose of all these experiences? Why are they teaching children under 10 complex understanding of physics, taking them to wormholes and black holes and teaching them about the non-linear nature of time? Why are they doing this to teaching small children these things? These are the things that we've got to start asking questions to, because this is going to give us some sense and understanding maybe just what the agendas are, why they're having this intimate relationship with humanity.
We're going to get to children after the break, and it's one of the most interesting aspects of this, and we're going to talk about, Zach and Anthony, who I've spoken about on this show previously, but I want to go back to the data for a second. What are you seeing there, too, as far as trends go? Are the ages just evenly distributed? Is there more children these days? Is people in their 30s, older? What are you seeing with that data?
Well, we're still gathering it all together, and we've got a statistician. I can never say that word properly, but you know what I mean. The statistician,
yes.
Who's sorting all of that out for us. What I will say to you, and you're probably the first to know this, that we are actually going to put a book together. And this was hopefully going to be published next year. And it's going to have an incredible number of individuals that are commenting on what we're discovering through our research. And there's some, Preston Dennett is actually one of them, but Dr. Climo, Dr. Bob Davis, who's the neuroscientist. We've got Rebecca Hardcastle writing a chapter, Rosemary Guiley, Dr. Claude Swanson, who's a physicist, Reverend Michael Carter, and Ray Hernandez. In other words, we're all going to contribute to this book, which will encapsulate all that we're finding through this research. So it will be a wonderful, I think, contribution to ufology, to consciousness, because the other important thing here is that what we're seeing is that the extraterrestrial contact is only one way that we appear to have these kinds of experiences. For some people, for example, we are having people that are having near-death experiences, that are having interactions with these beings, for example. We have others having it after a shamanic experience. So it's not just UFOs, guys. It's all these other ways that as we open up to our multidimensional selves, people are starting to have interactions with these non-human intelligences. So this is literally what we're seeing as a kind of movement of awakening of humanity through different methods. One is through the interaction with, UFOs and ETs. Others is through near-death experiences. Others through a Kundalini awakening. So this is actually about consciousness, not just UFOs.
I wanted to ask you, there's an aspect to all of this that I need to find some answers on. And certainly there is us, and when I say us, those that are members of a modern society that maybe have a car payment and they're paying rent and they have kids in school and they have a job and so forth. But then there are those that are the world's very, very poor, that don't have access to the internet, that are not, they don't even know that you and I are on the air right now speaking about this. How are they affected by ET? And is ET aware of them as well? And are they making contact?
I believe absolutely. One of the very interesting things with South America is that, in many countries there, they are really quite poor and they don't have access to any of this. It's amazing the numbers there that are sharing their contact experiences and very open to it. Their whole culture is very open to it. This is a global movement of awakening, I believe. And I think that my sense is, and it's only a hypothesis, that since we got the technology to blow ourselves up primarily and to destroy our planet and pollute it the way that we have, this is where things really started to accelerate, I believe, with these intelligences. It's like oh my goodness, it's like we've given this 3-year-old child a loaded gun and they don't yet realize that it can kill everyone. And what I feel is an accelerated program to upgrade and help us mature. And this is what I think, in essence, I think is happening. The older generations, that have come in have been, if you like, the bridge builders between the old paradigm and the new. But the new ones coming in are already there. They're already across the bridge. And I think that this is why it's happening in such great numbers now, and why so many people are starting to come out of the space closet is because we're at a critical point in our human behavior and evolution. And the fact that 20 years ago I couldn't talk about half of the things I talk about now, there has been a real shift in acknowledgement, awareness, and understanding, with people taking this on board now, and they don't think it's crazy anymore. More and more people accept that this is a reality. And, look at the cartoons on the telly for the children. There's aliens in most of them. It's like they're being desensitized on numerous levels to prepare us for contact in a very real way.
Hey, yeah, I've kind of noticed that too. We're going to hit a break here in 60 seconds, Mary, but I've noticed that too, that the very youngest out there, they don't even question ET or the presence of ET. Is that part of it? Is that Hollywood that has just completely opened them up and they don't question it today?
I think absolutely, because they already know. They already know it's real, because these children are born without a lot of the old programs. So they accept it absolutely, and it isn't a problem for them.
I find it fascinating, because you may, if you're talking to somebody that is, our age, 40, 50, 60 years old, you're going to get a varied response to this. But talk to somebody under the age of 20. It's a total. I think you're going to hit on about 100% response rate there about the question of ET being here or contact.
Well, absolutely. There is no problem with them whatsoever. And I think that's part of the way we're being prepared. And these children already know it's real. And for them, the children I'm speaking to not only know it's real, they also know where they come from and why they're here.
Okay, let's take a break right here, because when we come back, we're going to talk about the children, the new human awakening to our cosmic heritage, the new book. Our guest tonight, Mary Rodwell, live from Australia. This is Fade to Black. I'm your Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. You can follow Mary. Her links are up in Twitter. It's hard for me to say live on the air. I'll be right back.
This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
This is KGRA Digital Broadcasting Station, Salt Lake City, Utah, Van Buren, Arkansas.
Hello, I'm Katie, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA Digital Broadcast Station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier.
And I'm Ari Gold.
We're the Honey Brothers.
And you're listening to Jimmy Church.
The Revolution.
Ancient Life Oil. Life-changing. The real oil. CBD is truly ancient life oil from the source. This oil has no psychoactive effect and is also legal in all 50 states. When you're healthy, you're happy. The truth about this wonderful plant is that it wants to give back to mankind life, longevity, and happiness. Ancient Life Oil are golden grade, all organic, non-GMO, and infused with high-quality liquid coconut oil. It's simple. Just go to ancientlifeoil.com today. That's ancientlifeoil.com. The best purest, organic, and non-GMO CBD in the world. Go Beckley Tappy. The statements made regarding these products have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. These products are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please consult your healthcare professional about potential interactions or other possible complications before using any product. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hard shell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tappy.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Our guest tonight, Mary Rodwell, live from Australia. She is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network and also the co-founder of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, also known as FREE. Now, Mary is one of the stars in the new movie, new film documentary, Gods Among Us, and The Science of Contact. And it's an extraordinary film. And now, Mary, there is one part of this film that absolutely floored me, and that is, of course, the appearance of Zach and Anthony. When I found, okay, before we get to Zach and Anthony, the phenomenon of young children, talking about their ET contact is something that has not been talked about much over the years. This is pretty groundbreaking stuff. And I got a lot of comments. I want to say this really quick. I got a lot of comments from when I had Caroline on the show that I was almost uncomfortable talking about it. You know, it just feels strange to me. Now, I want to discuss one aspect. Do you think that some of these children may be influenced by their parents' beliefs and what their parents are seeing and watching, and maybe they're hanging out and watching documentaries? And do you understand where I'm going with that? Are they being influenced by their parents?
It's a very good question, and it's very valid. But what I will tell you of this, the ones that have written to me and the stories that I've shared in my book, the parents are very clear that they haven't front-loaded their children at all about any of this. In fact, it's been a primary thing with most parents. And I mean, most parents, I think, have, you know, that sense of responsibility that they won't in any way influence their children in anything. But when the child comes out with things that you can't explain, that they haven't seen on the television, that in fact are so complex that even they have a struggle understanding them, then you've got to take notice. And the reason that I've put at least 9 chapters of the children, and those ones are all under 10, I might add, or 11, some of the things that are being said there are really quite astounding. And the parents will write to me and say, it's freaking me out that my child has just been telling me this. And they are literally freaked out and saying, have you heard of anyone else that's speaking like this or whatever? So they're very protective and they're very careful that whatever they're interested in or they know about, they are not putting there in front of the children at all. It's only because the child themselves has said things that have got them questioning, In other words, is my child having these experiences too? And I'm talking about children from, 3 and 4 years old right up to 10 that are talking about concepts that only adults would know about. Everything from wormholes to black holes to the non-linear nature of time. They're explaining these to their parents. One of the fascinating ones is some of the drawings that a young lady called Tracy, well, she's a mum herself now, but she did drawings that I put out many years ago of her extraterrestrial art, if you like, geometric forms. A mother who had got a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old in the US just showed the pictures to both these children. Both children said they're from the aliens. No front loading, no nothing.
Right.
However, the 7-year-old started to decode them and actually say what was going on in these pictures and of the 7 that were coming. And he went into this whole detail about teleportation of craft and what the pyramids are for. And the mother wrote in the bottom part of this, Mary, this is freaking me out. How does he know this? And this is one of the, this is what I'm talking about. These children are sharing this with their parents if they think their parents are open enough. But they're bewildered too because they don't understand why their parents don't know about this, or their parents are worried about it because this is part of their reality. So this is the kind of thing that I'm writing about. And it really is astounding, some of the complex information that has been mentioned to me. I remember talking to an 8-year-old child that came to see me in my office with his mother because of all the drawings that he did. He'd spoken to her about going up on spacecraft, and that the beings he interacted with were the manta or mantid beings and also the feline beings. She'd had her own experiences. She'd not mentioned anything to him. And it was when she said to him, can you tell me more about this? He said to her, so you don't think I'm crazy? So the 8-year-old was questioning his sanity with his mother because he finally was given an opportunity to share that he was going up on spacecraft. This child I spoke to several hours because he was in Queensland, and he told me that he goes up on the craft. He's being taught different complex subjects. And when I said to him, well, can you tell me about some of these complex subjects that you're taught? And he said, no, because they're too complex for you. In other words, this really gets you,
Right.
8-year-old's telling you you're not going to understand because it's too darn complex, and his family, his real family, is not human. They're manta beings. They're his family. And that's what he's going to end up when he leaves this planet. That's where he's going again, to be another mantid. Now, what child would say that in normal circumstances? In itself, it's extraordinary. But he's not the only one. I mean, there's so many I could share. And this is the kind of thing I'm coming across. These children talk about their past lives, although they're talking about where they were a couple of years ago. And they will actually say to their parents, if they've had a past life with the parent, well, don't you remember when we were on a water planet together? Don't you remember, Mum? And she's going, what do you say to that when a child is saying that to you? And one young man of 12 saying that he was from Arcturus and that his mother was blue, had blue skin, and it talked about what he did on that planet. But this is the kind of information you don't front load your kids with. This is coming out from a part of them that has a recall of a past life on another planet or even another dimension. I had a 10-year-old telling me from England that he knows that he came through a portal in the sun. And he explained to his teachers that they're not teaching correctly because they teach in a linear fashion and he thinks in spirals. He actually explained to me that when he was 7 or 8, he was given formula to create portals. But again, nobody understands because of this kind of information. What child knows about formula to create portals at 7 years old? This is the kind of thing I'm talking about.
Is this something new when it comes to ET, or do you feel that this has gone on for 1,000 years?
I think that they've been working on consciousness all the way through. A lot of people will not know with Nikola Tesla, for example, that he said he came from another planet. He also was autistic, and he got a lot of his information through visions. He was also a vegetarian. Now, a lot of these qualities are the qualities of these new kids coming out with this kind of information. One of them I spoke to, I was actually speaking to his father to start with, and he's in the US, and he said, can I speak to Mary? Now, this is very interesting that a child of 9 is confident enough to speak to a lady they don't know from a bar of soap, basically. And I said to him, why do you wish to speak to me? Well, he said, primarily because of your frequency. He then explained to me that he had come from Orion. He was a light physicist, and that he had used to work on time travel technology. He said, my problem with this planet is that the scientists here are very backward. They really wouldn't understand the kind of physics that I understand. And it's a problem for me because he said, the nearest to the understanding that I have is actually Nikola Tesla. Now, this is a 9-year-old explaining this to me, and a great deal more than that, I might add. But this gives you some idea of how these children understand themselves and the confidence they have about sharing their experience. Once they know you're okay, and they will check you out because these children are very cluey. They know whether you're lying to them. They'll know whether you've got other agendas. And believe me, they know exactly what's going on this planet. There's very little that they miss, including a lot of the truth embargo, the cover-up, what's happening on the planet, the way that we are being held down and everything that we're having to deal with. They know about this already. They don't need to see it on the internet. They already know what's going on, and they've also got their own mandate to deal with it.
Does it freak you out? I mean, seriously, does it freak you out? It certainly must affect you like it's affecting me and this audience.
Actually, it fascinates me because what it's doing is giving me hope for our future. I'm a grandmother of 5 now. I've got 5 grandchildren, 2 granddaughters and 3 grandsons. I want them to have a good life. I want them to have a future. And the way things are going at the moment, I am very concerned about whether they're going to even have a decent planet to live on. The fact that these kids are coming in with this awareness and this understanding and these abilities, to me, is giving us, me particularly, hope for the future, because I think if they've come in to help us to get things sorted out on this planet, hallelujah. No, I'm not frightened, but I am fascinated with their abilities and what they can do. And some of those, I'm going to show you something that's very new, and it's only come out recently, and I'm going to be doing a transcription of this. A mother contacted me about her son, who she said for many years has been talking to her in another language, which some call it light language or whatever, with both the language, which she seems to be able to respond with, although she doesn't understand what they're saying in English. But she also said to me that he's had a lot of visits by different beings, some of them positive, some of them not. But he actually was struggling with that a little bit. So she said, would you talk to him? I talked to this young man on Skype, and she didn't even know whether he would speak to me, because these children are very cluey and they soon know whether or not you're okay.
How old was he, Mary?
He's 9.
9, okay.
So I said to him, can you tell me a little bit about, and as I said, she wasn't even sure he was going to speak to me. Can you tell me a little bit about what's been happening? And he sat there, and for 40 minutes, he didn't stop talking. He told me how he dealt with different entities, various different types, some that are benevolent, some of them were not so benevolent. He said, now at night, he said, I go out of body and I make sure when other children are being interfered with by entities that are not loving or whatever, I deal with them. So he's explaining to me that he's doing this kind of work out of body because he now knows how to do it, because he's learned how to do it. He's learned how to deal with it. Now, you tell me what you think of that, because I think it's stunning. And he said, I'm going to teach other children how to do it, because a lot of them, have to deal with these different kinds of energies because when they go out of body, they're dealing with a multidimensional reality. This child of 9 was telling me what he was doing, and this is what he was doing.
Is there a blood factor that comes into this? Blood type Rh negative. Or is there anything there that you have found out?
I do believe the Rh neg is significant because there does seem to be a high percentage of those with Rh neg that are having experiences. So there is something within that particular gene base, I think, that and I would love to have the opportunity to, have the facilities that the governments have to look into how we can get more understanding of the genetic baselines that, because we know it goes through intergenerations. We know that. But I don't have the facilities to work out or have those that have the skills to work out how we can find out who actually has these experiences or whatever. But there are many that don't have Rh neg that are having experiences as well. But I do think they're looking for certain markers that obviously mean that it's gone through a number of genetic lines, and each one seems to be an upgrade. I mean, Dr. Roger Leir, before he died, bless his heart, he not only did work with implants, but he also talked about the star kids, because he had done some research many years ago on the intergenerational, what he was seeing through 40 years of developmental changes in children. And he had already worked out in those 40 years, certain developmental changes had accelerated in those 40 years up to 60 or 80%. And he said that cannot be just through better diet and all these things. He was absolutely convinced it was through alien intervention in our bodies and minds. And this was something that he spoke to me about many, many times, and he was fascinated by it. But I've also got information from 2 molecular biologists that are saying the same thing, that they are aware now that we are being upgraded, that there is, our DNA, what was considered dormant DNA, is being activated. And that's part of the extraterrestrial component that's being activated, that is actually assisting us to realize that we're multidimensional, to start manifesting all these abilities where we can start seeing energy fields, spirits, beings, having the intuition accelerated, precognition accelerated, clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. Right. All these kinds of abilities are being accelerated as we open up to our multidimensional nature. And with that, I think there is a purpose. And part of that purpose is to prepare us, because many of these beings are actually telepathic, and a lot of these children are telepathic. And that's what I talk about. I remember one 3-year-old woman speaking about her 3-year-old daughter, saying, Mary, she's been telepathic since she was born. And in 3 years, she reads not just my mind, but everybody else's around. And she said, and it's been becoming very confrontational for me because I've got to watch my thoughts the whole time. She said, and that's extremely tiring. So here we have children that can tap into you and know your motivation, know whether or not you're coming from the right place. You know what? We have really got to step up as a species, and we've got to really walk our talk now. And I think this is part of what needs to happen to us as we evolve into a newer kind of human, or an advanced, human.
Let's talk about the geographical component here. What are you seeing there with these children? Are they coming from, specific places around the world? Is there a consistency?
I think that there probably is, but what is the problem for me as a researcher, and one of the reasons with Free we're trying to get the questions translated into as many languages as possible, is to get a sense of how in other cultures this is happening. Part of the problem is, I'm only really speaking to the English-speaking world and those that, English is a second language primarily. Fortunately, someone has kindly offered to translate my book into Chinese, and I'm actually hoping that will give me a chance then to find out what's happening in China. I actually have one researcher in China that's been sending me some of material that is showing it's certainly happening, but they're seeing it in a different way often as not. They're seeing it more as just a psychic kind of paranormal kind of experience rather than through extraterrestrial interactions or interdimensional interactions. You know, some of the things I talk about, coming out with strange languages, the light languages, doing strange scripts and strange artwork that are brought down. One was translated for me, which I've added, which is they're talking about communication with beings under the surface of Jupiter, for example, and they just see that as just paranormal, less in the way that we would, which is, you know, interpreting it as an extraterrestrial kind of contact. So I would love to know more about what's happening in China, but at the moment, you know, the language is always the problem with this, Jimmy. You know, what I'm hoping and what we're doing with Free is to try and make this a global kind of collection of data. And if we can do that, we can get a real sense of just what's happening in other parts of the world.
Do you think with the contact that you have made, do you think that these children number in the hundreds, in the thousands, or do you think it could be a huge number, like in the millions?
Well, if I go on a 9-year-old that was speaking about the stars, kids and what have you, she reckons that 50% of the planet are star seeds in the ones, the awakened star seeds. Her biggest problem with that, though, is that she says many that go to these normal schools get programmed out of their light, as she calls it. And what she means by that is that the programming in schools and education primarily actually conditions you out of it, opening up to your multidimensional information and knowledge and awareness. And so she said many get corrupted through standard education. But if she's right, 50% of the planet so far, but how many retain that awareness as they get older is the biggest problem, apparently. And that's why I talk about a new way of educating the children, which won't shut them down in the way that, you know, this standard education does. And she said, you know, that the teachers program them and then just press the keys, is the way that she put it. And I think that's a pretty good analogy of what I think is happening in schools, in many schools today.
I have had a few contactees share one experience with me over and over again, and that is they have been what they presume is a craft, and they're being walked around or maybe entering, but they literally look into a classroom setting where it is a room full of kids sitting all about the same age, sitting at desk, and they're being taught by a teacher. Are you hearing this same sort of experience?
Absolutely. Some of them will describe how they use their consciousness to move things in a holographic kind of way they're taught. This young 8-year-old told me 2 of his school friends were there. There were some humanoids, but he said they weren't human. They would look different. I said, what do you mean? He said, well, their eyes were different. And they will talk about a hybrid facilitating that and being taught the different things. One young, I think she's 8 in my book, that talks about going on a craft. She's taken actually to the planet Mars and shown the domes there. She says there is beings under the surface, but she said it was there that I was taught how to understand the nature of space and time. So she was explaining that she was being taught by a hybrid, but there was also mantid beings there and greys. And she said the greys kind of chatter a lot, she said, but the mantid uses telepathy. And she did a drawing of the craft, she did a drawing of what she saw, and she did a drawing of the hybrid, who she said was quite nice, but she knew this hybrid wasn't human. And this is what is so wonderful. They will draw what they're seeing. They will draw. Interestingly, she said something else that was very significant, and I gave it a lot of credibility. She said, but when they bring me back, Mary, they cloak the craft so people can't see that I'm returning. Now, what child of 8 knows about cloaking of craft, for example, and to use that very terminology in itself? Those are the kinds of things that always make me sit up and listen.
Do you think if somebody from the mainstream medical world psychiatric and so forth, was listening to the same thing. Do you think that the conclusion would be a negative one?
I think absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing with the 12-year-old that I spoke to, who told me that, when she's in the classroom, she's got what she calls her fairy there, a being that takes her up onto another planet. She said when the teacher says things that are inaccurate, she said this being will tell her the true answer. So she's getting the accurate knowledge. But she said, I said to her, do you ever talk about this to anyone in the class? And she said, oh, no, they wouldn't understand. And many of the parents, of course, know and warn their children that they mustn't talk about this at school because they wouldn't understand. And, they're very concerned that it might be picked up because they're different, that then, the psychologist is brought in or whatever. And this is the thing that really winds me up. If anything winds me up, it's this. Because of the truth embargo, because, these governments are not honoring the reality. You've got millions of people out there scared to be who they are, scared to speak their truth because of what may happen to them. And this is because, I'm not blaming the psychological professions or anything, because they're uninformed. They don't know this is a reality. But the bottom line is, until this truth comes out, then people are, still in hiding and can't be themselves. And of course, most of the time, even the family will look at them in askance if they don't know about this and think there's something wrong with them. Interestingly, I've met psychiatrists and I've met clinical psychologists and educators, all who've had experiences. And, they're in these different fields and, they know this is real. And they are able to use that in a way that if anyone comes to them with experiences, they can at least be respectful of it and help them out. And that's fabulous that we are, we're having some of them that are in these professions that can and do understand about the new children and, have had experiences themselves.
Let's take a break right there, Mary. Fascinating conversation. This is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, live from Australia, as if you didn't know, Mary Rodwell is with us, and we're talking about children and ufology, contact experiencers. Fascinating subject. We've talked about it a lot lately. More with Mary when we return. Stay right there.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRARadio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
So I get out of the shower this morning. I'm looking in the mirror, and not to brag, but my beach body is coming back. I'm not fearing shorts and bathing suits this summer. And thanks to naturesyouth.com, I'm here to help you too. The anti-aging experts, Nature's Youth RSF, they've developed an all-natural amino acid supplement that supports my body to naturally increase HGH levels without synthetic hormones. You see, HGH, or human growth hormone, it's produced by the pituitary gland, and it's essential for growth and regeneration of my cells and tissues. Elevated HGH levels can contribute to not only increasing my energy, improving my libido, and reducing my body fat, but overall improving my exercise capacity. Now, just by watching what I eat, doing a little exercise, and taking my daily dose of Nature's Youth RSF, I'm in a swimsuit, and I'm happy to be there. My beach body is back. I want you to get yours. Join me today and look better and less with help from Nature's Youth. It's easy. Go to naturesyouth.com. That's naturesyouth.com. And bring on the sunshine.
You listen to us, and we listen to you. And so does the CIA. KGRARadio.com.
Hi, folks. CBD is the home run hitter for health right now. Why, you ask? Because of what it does for the body. Unfortunately, I can't tell you all about the benefit. There's reasons. Do your due diligence and log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com. Ancient Life Oil uses organic ingredients and is blended in coconut oil for some of the best benefits. Legal in 50 states and non-psychoactive. Log on to ancientlifeoil.com. That's ancientlifeoil.com.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA, The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Our guest tonight, Mary Rodwell. And Mary, for everybody, what's your Twitter?
I haven't got a Twitter. Sorry about that. I don't do Twitter.
Oh, you have an imposter out there then?
Oh, look. Oh, have I?
No, it better be you.
Well, I don't do any Twitter. Quite honestly, I've got enough with my Facebook and my websites and my email.
We've been tweeting out the wrong. It's Acern _ Mary Rodwell.
Right. Well, I don't do anything with that, so I don't know who it is. Maybe it's my clone.
Okay, untweet. Okay, all right. Well, that was interesting. Okay. The innocence of children, I think, affects us all. You know, when you know your child comes to you and says, "I've got a ghost," you know, in my room, and you hear these things, it affects us, especially if you're a parent. But you have the innocence of the child, you know, just speaking an experience, the truth as they know it. And when it came to Westall and also Zimbabwe, and it happened to be both schools, right, in the middle of the day, was something that we had to stop and take note and understand what is going on here. But Westall was an Australian thing, and I think it's one of the most significant events in ufology. What did you take away from Westall and that experience and all of those kids seeing the exact same thing? Well, the adults did too. I'm not discounting the adults, but certainly it was a child experience.
I think it's fascinating that they are, you know, doing this to, you know, to help us to understand it's a reality. And I think that's really, really important now to be aware that the children are the future. But not only that, when you've got a number of children, that number of children that are saying the same thing, and Dr. John Mack, of course, the ones he interviewed in Zimbabwe as well, all saying similar things as he spoke with them. And the changes also that make this real is the changes it made in them. So that even when they were older, they had been still affected by it and changed by it and talked about that. This is the important evidence that a lot of people don't take on board, is you don't change dramatically in the way your perspective, the way that you look at life, in all these different ways after a hallucination, you know, or a fantasy. The only way you are changed so profoundly is if something very real has happened. And with the Westall's a fabulous story in the sense that it's got everything, the cover up, how, you know, they were told not to talk about this or whatever. And, you know, no notes were kept and film that was taken by the media was lost. You know, it's got all the conspiratorial things with it as well. But with that is just how authorities have been dealing with this. It's interesting, in Zimbabwe it was slightly different, probably because it was a different culture in the way that it was. But some of those individuals now, as adults, you know, have still been affected by it and have still had things happen to them. So for me, it's got all the elements of, you know, telling us this is real. but also how important the children are, and that this has affected them, is also giving us evidence of a reality. And we need it. We live in a 3D world that's denying our multidimensional nature all the time, you know. Unless you can feel it, see it, touch it, and whatever, it's not real. Whereas we're finally accepting that perhaps that's such a limited version of reality that we've got to stop relying on that to give us the proof of as evidence. The evidence for me is that you don't change in the ways that people do after contact, in these profound ways after anything but a real experience.
In Gods Among Us, Zach and Anthony, their part in the film is stunning. There's just no other way to put it. And if you haven't experienced a young adult with these experiences, and to see them speak, because that is part of the effect, it's a pretty moving thing to go through as an adult, because you're just looking at somebody that is, you know, it's a child. Zach, well, I want to talk about both, but Zach is a very unique young man. How did he find you? How did that come about?
Actually, he did. He said he didn't want to talk to anyone in the US because he didn't actually feel safe doing so. So that was why he accessed me. And we've had many hours of conversation over about 18 months or whatever. And when I started to write the book, The New Human, I asked him if I could put some of our conversations, which I'd recorded, you know, into the book. I mean, he blew me away. Every time I spoke with him, he blew me away. And I remember being very humbled by it, because then he was only 16. And I remember some of the things he was telling me, the profound things he was telling me, how to understand the nature of reality, for example. And I remember thinking, you know, it took me to get to 60 before I got a handle on that. And you're telling me at 16 exactly this understanding. But what I love about him is, you know, this is all so natural to him. It's no big deal. This is my experience. But I think the thing with Zach, too, was how he described his problems with his awareness. And he told me that he was, you know, at one point he was ready to take his own life at about 10 years old. He was either 10 or 11, because his family said, stop going into that other world, you know, dreamland, and get real and start being in the real world. You know, he says it better than I do, but that was the message from his family. And he said to me, Mary, you know, I tried just to be in 3D the way they wanted me to be. And he said, I got so depressed. I just didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be on this planet. And he said, so it was either suicide, or it was I go back to the reality that made sense to me. And then I, you know, even if it meant that I would have the judgment of all of those around me who still think that I'm, you know, not at all there or not okay or whatever it was. He said, because it was the only way I could survive on this planet. Now, the reason I'm making a point there is I wouldn't even like to think of the numbers of young people that feel the same way, that are like Zach, that have really given up, don't want to go to the schools, that are taking drugs or blitzing themselves with alcohol to dumb down all this awareness, because managing in a 3D world that doesn't accept that awareness is the most alienating, excuse the pun, of all. And a lot of them have literally said, you know, I just didn't want to be here. I didn't want to be on this planet. So he highlights something extremely important. That is, this is the situation of these new aware children, is that we've got to start listening and we've got to start honoring how they understand reality. And this is, you know, a very profound part of what I think Zach is saying, apart from the fact that he knows he's a hybrid, and he explains the nature of being a hybrid as well and how he understands it. And, you know, this is fascinating when you see the way he articulates it is quite stunning.
When did how old was he when he first started to make contact that he knew of?
He became, I think, when he was first aware of it, although he'd been having things as a child that he hadn't been really aware of what was going on. I think when he first really understood, I think he was about 7 or 8, when he really started to understand what was going on and what was happening and whatever. So it was a process of understanding. But his story is really quite stunning. Anyone who wants to read it, I've got 2 chapters actually on Zach in there, because we're also talking about the covert programs as well that he understands, and how he'd been affected by some of these covert programs that had a really detrimental effect on him in many, many ways for some time, till he understood what was going on. So, this is the other part of it. There are agencies on this planet that do know about these children and unfortunately have their own agendas with them. But that's, a whole nother story.
Right. I can only imagine what is going on with that part of it. Zach also, let's talk about him speaking the language. And when he goes, yeah, you want to hear me do it? I'll do it right now, right? The honesty was part of the charm of that. But he does it. Does he know what he's saying? Do you know what he is saying? Has there been any translation of this?
Yes and yes. First of all, one of the things that I noticed after contact, there are a few very significant expressions that tell me someone's having a real experience with these intelligences. One of them is they suddenly start manifesting unusual artwork. Sometimes it's like Tracy Taylor's, geometric in form, multidimensional in form, etc., etc. Another one is that they may spontaneously start speaking these strange languages. In churches, I think they call it speaking in tongues, but I think it's actually part of our star heritage, is that what we're tapping into is that genetic part of us that's, part extraterrestrial. And there are many different types of languages. You'll find, the other young man that I mentioned in my book, Anthony, he speaks Arcturian. What happens is that for some of them, yes, they can actually not only speak it, they can translate it. And I'll give you an example of that. In my book, In Awakening, there's a script that was written by Tracy Taylor. And that script is a light language that she wrote. I had a mother in Queensland contact me saying her 7-year-old told her that she could translate it. So I talked to this 7-year-old, a beautiful young lass, and I very confident, and I talked to her over Skype, and I said, your mum tells me that you can read this strange writing. Oh, yes, she said. So I said, can you tell me what it says? So she laughs and she said, yes. She says, do you want it in the language or do you want it in English? So I said to her, can you do both? Oh, yes. So she proceeds immediately to read this in front of me through Skype in the language. She then translates it into English. And then I said to her, I was pushing my luck a bit. I said, do you know where it comes from? Oh, yes. She said, this is from the Greys. Wow. Now, this is a 7-year-old child that I tested. And she actually did a similar thing some months later, but she'd gone through a book of mine. I've got heaps of different types of languages that different people have spoken. Some of them can communicate with each other, with them, and understand each other. And when I was speaking to another 9-year-old that I mentioned earlier, his mother said he speaks one of the languages with words and with movements. She said, I can speak it back at him, but I don't know what I'm saying. He can speak it and he can translate it to me. And this is a 9-year-old that I interviewed only a couple of weeks ago.
What did... Okay, I want to ask you directly 2 things. One, with the little girl who was 7, what did she translate it to? Do you remember?
I do. In overview, it was about how we're treating the planet. It was all to do with taking care of our ecology, that we needed to be careful about what we're doing and what have you. So it was really an ecological message. When I asked her some months later in front of some adults, and I gave her a book where I had lots of script, because I get people sending me script from all over the world saying, do you know what these symbols are? Do you know what this script is? I find myself doing it spontaneously. I feel really good, but I don't know what it is or what it says. Some actually know what is being said, some don't. Some can't be translated, I gather. It's something you sense from a super conscious level. But anyway, I actually asked her to go through the book, and she stopped and she said, I can't read all of this. She said, all the ones that you've got in the book, but this one I can. It's completely different script. And she read it almost diagonally. And again, she did it in the language. She translated it into English. And I said, do you know the source of that particular information? She said, yes, the mantid beings and the greys. So she knew it was a mix of two species. And this was in front of adults. I had no idea which one she was going to pick out. I saw her doing it in a way that it was obvious that she was looking at it. She was working it out before she spoke. It wasn't like, a kid just doing a performance. She was looking at every part of it before she said what it was that was being said there. And I've had a 12-year-old spontaneously in a presentation go through the book. And he said to his mum in front of me, I can read that. It was something that I'd got from a lady in America. And he literally just in front of me started to read it to me, just spontaneously. This is on a desk with all my books, where he just came with his mum and happened to see this particular script. And it was just spontaneous that he'd come out with it. Who does those kinds of things, Jimmy? It's like, how did you do that? I'm constantly being amazed at how they can do this and how they understand it. And all I can say is, and I'm pretty certain now from my research, that a lot of this is taught on the craft, that they're shown this kind of script, these symbols on the craft, and it's in their subconscious, and they recognize it when they're conscious because it's still available to them. And I've known many experiences tell me that a lot of the script they see has been on the craft, that it's multidimensional in nature, and some of it can't even be translated because it's like filling a room with encyclopedias in one symbol, and you can't possibly translate that in a linear fashion.
Can Zach communicate with other children, and has he attempted that? One, and two, have you had any of your clients, children, listen to Zach, and do they speak his language and do they understand each other?
I haven't done that. I have had it shown to me with various adults that have communicated with one another, and I've seen it spontaneously happen where someone else, and I'll give you an example of that. I don't know, many people will know Dolores Cannon.
Of course.
She is a beautiful lady, a colleague, friend. We often met at conferences. She spoke to my support group in Perth a number of times. A wonderful lady, but she'd had a regression. She'd done a regression where there was a language on it. And she said to me, she was speaking to my group, and there were about 25 people there. And she said, Mary, this is strange. I did a regression, and this woman started to come out with this strange language. Have you got any idea what might be happening there? And two in my group burst into tears. One of them was terribly upset and emotional. She said, that's my language. That's from where I'm from. And it actually blew Dolores away. She couldn't believe it. So what I'm saying is, yes, they are recognized. I've literally done a presentation where I've played some of these languages deliberately to see if there's a response. And only in one of the interesting responses was a lady came up to me afterwards. She said, Mary, I'm a nurse. And she said, and I was looking and listening to that language. I have just found myself writing this weird script. I can't explain to you, but as soon as I heard the language, I had to get a piece of paper, and I've now written this weird script. Can you tell me what the hell's going on? So this is what can happen. It's like it acts as a trigger. It's a frequency that seems to act as a trigger to people who have had experiences, and they respond to it, even if they don't fully understand why. And I have cases like this all the time, where someone will see a script and they will either recognize it and be emotional about it, or actually have an understanding what it says. Getting back to Zach, I haven't played his language to anyone with the children, but I do know that the children have responded and talked to each other in these languages. And also, like this 9-year-old spoke to his mother in this language. She spoke back in the language, but she has no idea what she's saying, whereas he does. And I'll tell you one other little story that may interest you. I did a regression with a woman who is a scientist, and her daughters had experiences, and she found it very difficult to believe it, but she trusted her daughter, and she in the end acknowledged it. But her daughter had shown her a picture of their past life together and of the children in that past life. And the mother, the scientist, asked me whether I could regress her to find out whether this was real. or not. Because she was a scientist, she was really keen to get a sense of this. She said, every time I look at the picture my daughter's drawn, I get emotional, but I don't know why. When I took her back to that experience, her daughter was in the room, and she said, they're speaking to me. These were the children she was seeing, in her past life. And she said, they're speaking to me, but I can't understand them. Her daughter made a sign to me saying, basically, can I say something? The daughter started to speak in the language to her mother, and her mother, the scientist, in hypnosis, responded to answer her in the same language. But she couldn't do it as soon as she came out of the hypnosis, but she did it while she was in hypnosis. So there's so much on another level that we have within us that we don't realize it's so many answers, so much understanding. And I think what's happening is we're starting to, as we awaken or we get activated, we're starting to tap into that. And this is what's going on. And it's happening, I believe, globally.
Have you exposed any of the children to the symbols that Peniston drew from Rendlesham?
It's a good question. I haven't, to be honest. It hasn't occurred to me to do that. It certainly would be interesting to see their response to it. There's so many things I could do, Jimmy, with this, and a lot of the time it is just time. I'm forever being accessed by parents, by educators as well, that are telling me about children and what's going on, and parents trying to deal with it because they're not quite sure how to help them or whatever. So there's so much more I would love to do with this research. Primarily, the New Human is really about telling their stories to begin with, and some of the information they have, but certainly those are things I can look at down the track.
What about hieroglyphics and ancient Egypt script and maybe even Sumerian texts? Have you exposed any of the children to those?
No, but I do know some of the children have talked about when they were here before and that they'd come from various times like that and have been aware that they've come not only as an Earth human, but also as a visitor to this planet in past times, that they've come in and experienced being visiting this planet. An interesting one is a story that has been quite well known as a young lad, Boriska, in Russia, who he was only a young baby, a young child when he talked about coming from other planets, that he came from Mars. In his past life, he came from Mars and visited the Lemurians here. And the Lemurians were I think he said 9 feet or 9 meters, I can't remember now, tall, but he visited this planet a number of times and had connections here. And he talked about the indigo children, the new children coming in and what have you. But he remembers very vividly his past life on Mars, which of course Zach did. Zach told me all about his past life on Mars because he said to me, I can build interstellar craft. And I said, how do you know? Is it a download from the beings? Have you been taught on the craft? He said, oh no, this is a past life memory. I used to build them when I was on Mars, and gave me an overview of his life on Mars, which he had enormously complex and detailed information on from that lifetime. But what's fascinating is they're bringing the skills in from these other planets that they come from, where they were able to do these things, which I think is absolutely fascinating.
I want to talk about Anthony, too, here, and we're going to head to the break. So, Anthony, I'm going to give you a fair shot here. It's equal airtime. How did you find Anthony?
Again, Anthony contacted, me. He'd heard of my work and what have you, and wanted to show me some of his, the wonderful symbols and geometric forms that he drew, and tell me about his understanding of why he's come to this planet as an ecological engineer. He's come here as an ambassador, he tells me. He speaks Lemurian, Arcturian, should I say. Mm-hmm. And he does it exactly as fluently as Zach does it, and quite naturally as well. So you've got, what I loved about Anthony is that one of his school projects was all about a particular energy project where he built a pyramid with crystals and showing how that expands consciousness. And he did that for a school project, and it was amazing, just an amazing image that he'd done and put together. And I thought, what 16-year-old does that? I think he might have even been 15 when he did that. What 15-year-old produces something as amazing as that and as unusual as that in his school? And this is what the young kids don't care, you know, these new ones. They don't care if it's different or if it's strange. This is what they know, and this is what they're seeing, and they need to bring into the planet. So the wonderful thing with Zach and with Anthony is that they really don't take any notice of judgment. Anthony's very lucky. He's got very open parents. But he, again, contacted me.
The friends that they have, are they rock stars, right? I mean, you know what I mean? How do they get along socially?
I think that they tune into the ones that are like themselves. And I know Zach said this. He knows when he meets another starseed or whatever name you want to give them. He knows immediately. He can tell from their frequency. Just like that 9-year-old looked at me over Skype and knew he could talk to me because he recognized a frequency that was open to him and his information. And this is what they do. They're not looking at the cover. They're sensing and feeling whether this person is someone that they can connect with or relate to. And this is how it's going to be. You know, it doesn't matter what you wear, what you look like, or how well off you are, or whatever. That isn't going to mean anything. What will mean is what's in your heart, what you are, and how open you are.
If there was a documentary, Mary, put together with, 20 of these children speaking about their experiences, do you think the world would get upset, or do you think they would kick back and take notice?
I would like to think that they would kick back and take notice, because I think most people think the world is broken and that we need to sort it out. And if these children, and they're, I believe many of them are out there already, only we don't recognize them yet. Some of these amazing young children that are showing they're almost savants, that are playing wonderful music at 8 or 9 years old, or singing with these beautiful angelic voices that we're having on talent shows, not realizing that they may very well be these new children as well that are making us feel better and uplifting and what have you. Doing the artwork, some incredible artwork some of these children are doing. All of this, I believe, acts as triggers. And what in the book, there's a young adult that is a wonderful artist, and he said that what he is painting acts like a trigger to people's consciousness, so that when they look at it, their consciousness is being shifted. And he talks about the beings, he talks about coming from another dimension, and he said, and that's what my artwork is for. He said it's to shift people's awareness. So they're very aware that they've come in with a mandate, they've come in with a purpose, and that all the things that they're doing are ways to trigger and activate, the older models like you and me.
Let's take a break right here. Our guest tonight, Mary Rodwell. She is the founder and principal of the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network and co-founder of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters, otherwise known as FREE. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Mary when we come back. Stay with us.
Listen to my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night and you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. Get the tea.com. That's getthetea.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to jimmychurchradio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
This is KJCR at jimmychurchradio.com.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Network and KGRA The Planet. Our guest tonight, Mary Rodwell. And she is the principal and founder of the Australian Close Encounter Resource Network. And she has so much research into children that are not only making contact, but the information coming from them is extraordinary. It's a subject that, Mary, I'm just completely fascinated with. And part of it is because I'm a parent. And I find it very, very moving and compelling at the same time. And you had mentioned earlier about, knowledge of ancient history and prehistory and lost civilizations and Egypt and maybe even Lemuria and Mu and Antarctica and Atlantis. I kind of want to address some of this. What have you found out?
Well, I was talking about Tracy Taylor's drawings and a 7-year-old being shown them. I just want to quote a little bit about what he said when he looked at the pictures. Her 7-year-old said that he could read them. They contained information about aliens. A few of the paintings contain images of harvesters of energy, machines that harvest the sun's energy. They have different types, and he was talking about the different ones. And he said the others contain information about the aliens. One is about the 7 who will be coming. There are eagle people, Anubis, the gods, and oh yeah, those guys, cat lion looking people. He said in the images of possibilities. He says that they're ancient messages. Another piece with writing he translated as the fallen are coming. this is a picture called Treasures of Existence. He noted the energy rings around the triangle, and he said, that's a pyramid. That's how they'll come. He said, one piece of another image represents time. He said something, he then said that there are a couple that he hasn't learned yet. But what was fascinating is that, she talked about him as well and his dreams. And he said, did you have any dreams last night? He said, oh, yes, Mum. I finished magic school, he goes. And she said, well, what do you mean? He says, oh, everything, mostly science. I learned about time and space and gravity. Time controls everything. Time controls all. Now, this is the dream that he had as a 7-year-old. Now, that in itself, not only translating a little bit about what these images were, he was actually saying about what he understands is likely to happen. A lot of the one 5-year-old told his mother that the pyramids, when she was telling him about the pyramids and how, hundreds of people brought them, and managed to build them slowly with hundreds of people. He said, no, Mom. He said, that's completely wrong. He said, I was there. He said, they changed the density structure of objects large and small, and they levitated the stones into place. So, this is fascinating. And I'm going to do an aside here because the synchronicities of this were quite funny. I was watching a travel program with Joanna Lumley, who many will know is a wonderful actress. And she's traveling down the Nile in this travel program just a few days ago. And she's talking to one of the boatmen. And she was talking about the stones being carried along the Nile. And she said to this boatman, obviously with a translator, so about the stones being brought through the Nile. He said, the ancients used strange kinds of instruments, he said. And these instruments they used with certain kinds of sounds, he said, and they levitated all the stones into place. And Joanna Lumley sat there and she didn't quite know what to say because this was an Egyptian man in his 50s or 60s that's traveled the Nile obviously all his life and was coming out with something that was very similar to what these children have been saying.
The any information about Antarctica or Lemuria or Atlantis?
All I get from them is that we are at a point where we're going to be shown the truth. I will tell you that they're very aware. A number of them have told me that the moon is artificial, that there are beings under the surface of the moon and it has been used for mining, but it's artificial. And one of the young men of 12 said to his father they'd left something there in his past life, something that would now be discovered, that was going to help with what's going to happen. So he was aware in a past life there was some technology there that was going to be found. So that was actually quite fascinating in the fact that he was going retrospectively into it. I have known that some of them talk about their lives in Atlantis. One young lady that I mentioned, Lee Capitilli in the book, who calls herself a Homo Noeticus, she explains that she was there when Atlantis went down. And she explains the very moment when she had a bird with her that she had on her shoulder. And she describes exactly the moment when everything changed and there was this huge explosion where literally the whole part of Atlantis that we can't see now actually disappeared beneath the waves. But she was someone who said that she was what she used to do was as a researcher. I mean, the way she describes it is stunning. As a researcher, she used what we would call, the crystal skulls as hard drives. They were used as information storage. And she said, I'm one day I'd love to come across my own skull, she said, because that's where I put the information that I had learned. What was actually, somehow they transferred that from their consciousness into the crystal, which is really fascinating.
How old was she?
Well, when she told me this, she was 19.
Okay.
She's a little bit older now, but she the stuff that she told me and how she explained it, what gets me every time, Jimmy, is this isn't just a very, I would call very an overview. They go into detail. And she went into detail. Anything I asked her to explain, she could go into detail and explain it to me. And that's what gives it the integrity that you can't help but listen to. And the way they speak about it, the naturalness of it, it's, you know when someone's confabulating, you know when they're, getting carried away, what have you. And this is when someone's telling you something they remember, it is completely different. And, when you hear them, and as you said, when you listen to Zach, you can't dismiss it because of the way that he tells you and the way he articulates it. And this is exactly the same thing that I get with these children and these young adults.
What about the Akashic Records?
Oh, many of them know about the Akashic Records and actually are able to, they say, actually access them. What seems to be, and what Tracy Taylor was saying about these new ones, they're born without the programs, so that they are able to access much of what is in their genetic history, which goes right back to where they're from, to the many lifetimes or whatever, but that also allows them to access the databases as well. This is why they're so aware and why they can do what they can do. And I talk about some of the gifts that they have as well, from teleportation, bilocation are some of them, as well as, precognition, etc. But some of them, remote influencing, being able to tell what's truth and what isn't truth. Heaven help the politicians with these kids, because there's no way in hell they'll get away with it.
Right.
Because they know right away when you're telling a porky pie, they really do.
Right.
The other thing is they know about what's going on with, the chemtrails, all these things and what have you. They're aware of them. They know what's going on. And, there's many of our planet, as you know, that are still asleep. They're not. They know what's happening and they know how they're being manipulated. They know exactly what's happening. And this is what's so brilliant, is you can't con them. You can't, tell any stories, because they'll just know by looking at you. One of the 13-year-olds told me many years ago, she said, my problem in school is with some of the teachers. She said, one of the teachers, when they're talking, she said, I know what they're saying and what they're thinking are two different things. And often what this teacher's thinking isn't very nice. So it was like, here we go again. This is really challenging us as a species to really, up our game and, be what we're meant to be. And that is, to come from a place of integrity and authenticity. That's the only way we're going to end up being galactic humans, is to actually be able to be at a place where we can come from that integrity so that we can, I think, be prepared to dialogue, and interface with these intelligences, because that's where they operate. That's how they operate.
What about, I didn't bring up, what about remote viewing? I mean, we talk about all of these other special abilities, but what about remote viewing?
They can do all of that. They can do it naturally. They don't have to be taught. They just know. And they also have something, this synesthesia, where they, a lot of people think that that's an aberration. I think it's just part of the new human. What it means is that you can experience something, not just it with one sense, but with multiple senses. And many of them can do this, so that they are literally experiencing the hologram or the multidimensional matrix, if you like, with information, with what they're seeing, what they're sensing, what they're understanding. So one of the reasons they struggle, especially some of these ones that we call the new programs, is because of the data that they're getting, like the ADHDs. I mentioned Neil Gold here because he's written a book, Close Encounters of the ADHD Kind.
Right.
And the reason I mention him is because he said, I always experienced a multidimensional reality. And he said, and it was very difficult as a child to make sense of 3D when I was experiencing it from so many other levels. And he actually retranslates that into always dialed into higher dimensions, which is what the ADHD is operating on. They're operating at many times the speed of what we are, and that's why they struggle with 3D. They have to be, the only way they can cope with our pedestrian way of experience and reality is, to be dumbed down, and that's what exactly has been happening. They're being stuck full of Ritalin to shut them down. But actually, they're showing us where we're going. They're showing the new human. And we've got to retranslate that or have a different perspective, because that's where ultimately we will be able to be as well. We will be seeing things from that perspective rather than this very limited 3D reality that we're told is all there is.
Do you are there critics out there that say that you or others, maybe even the parents, are exploiting these children?
Well, I don't know if exploiting them by sharing information that will help parents understand them, or educators, or those within the psychological fields is exploiting them. I think that that's probably the furthest thing from anyone's mind that's coming from this space. All we're trying to do is to put the research information and the information that we've garnered to help, if you like, reinterpret these new children so that they get a fair go. How do you exploit that? I mean, all you're trying to do is to give a new perspective that may help these many kids out there. And to be quite honest, you know, for me as a grandmother, and I look at these beautiful children and my own, and all I want for them is for them to be listened to, for them to be heard, and for them to be understood. And if this helps us to understand and have better ways of supporting them, then how is that exploiting them? That is just helping society to have a different take on these, rather than see them as dysfunctional or genetically faulty, which I don't believe is the case at all. And, you know, what I'm getting from, you know, a number of molecular biologists, particularly, that are open to this, is that all these are just showing us an evolutionary process of the human. Is that exploiting to put that out there? I think, if anything, hopefully, it's helping humanity grow up.
Have any of them talked about government contact?
Do you mean in terms of governments that are exploiting them?
That could be. Have any of them been taken away briefly? The classic Men in Black situation, of course, but has the military gotten involved? Has there been any government contact from an agency?
Yes. Absolutely. You don't think they're going to stand by and let these new humans come and actually change the system? Not if they can use them for their own ends. Well, I'm going to give you a very short answer to that about a young 9-year-old that told me that he was aware he'd been picked up, taken to an underground base. He remembers it consciously. He remembers being put in a chair. He remembers someone in a black uniform, a female, in a black uniform. He was aware of the technology that she had to one side, where he said they were using that to lower my frequency so they could get into my mind and take from it information, and including add new information that wasn't okay. He said, I was aware of it. She didn't know I was aware of it. And most of the time I was able to keep my frequency too high for them to do it. Now that's in one of the chapters of the young man who had this experience. That's just one example. I have met those that have had my lab experiences as children, where they've been aware of being taken to underground bases, where their skills and their awareness have been utilized by these agencies, and I suspect there's a number of them. This is going on, and some of the kids don't escape it, but some are able to deal with it, as this young man was.
Well, certainly, now Zach and Anthony are, they're in a movie, they're in a feature film now. Are they in danger of being contacted, a whisk away even?
I think they already know about them. The thing is that we have to understand, guess what happens when you're born? You have blood taken, there's your energy signature right away. Right. They know what to look for, okay? So, the fact is that they can soon find out anyone who's had experiences or is having contact or whatever. The fact is that, a lot of the kids have come in knowing that this is the case, but also with the awareness how to deal with it. And this is really important, because they have to know how to deal with it, because it isn't going away. Just like we as adults have to deal with things that are not right on our planet, and being informed of that. Actually, then knowledge is power. And with the kids, the more knowledge they have, the more they're supported, the more this is less likely to happen at the end of the day. But this is the world we have to sort out, isn't it?
Have any of them talked about crop circles, and can they translate crop circles?
Some young children I know from the parents that have written to me have talked about the crop circles and who made them and what have you. Interestingly, there is sometimes a little bit of understanding around that, although I haven't gone into that in great detail. Fascinatingly, one young lady told me her experience of going out of body and actually being one of the intelligences that actually made the crop circles and was aware of how it was orchestrated by the beings. What we've got to really understand here is we're hybrids, and we're hybrids with perhaps a number, and maybe quite a number, of these extraterrestrial intelligences within our DNA. I mean, Bob Dean, bless his heart, has said that he's been told there's been 12 different species that are part of the human genome and what have you. Maybe it's that, or maybe there's even more, who knows. So the bottom line is we're connected to them. They're family, they're Rellies. And the bottom line is that they want us to be part of the galactic community. But for that, we have to, as I say, grow up. So what's happening is all these different ways that they're using, educating us, bringing in the new children with higher awareness, all those kinds of things are facilitating that evolutionary process in the human right now. But there is actually, people talk about, them and us. They're us, we're them. So it really is, let's stop doing this kind of nonsense where, if they were out to get us, guys, they've had plenty of time to do that right from when we were still in caves. They haven't bothered. So, why are they going to bother now that we've got technology? All they're really doing, and I'm not saying they're all like this. I do know that there appears to be the very benevolent ones, and there does appear to be some self-serving ones. That's part of the way that we learn to deal with duality as well, and to understand what is positive and what isn't so helpful as well. So I can't say who's what, because everyone has different experiences with these beings. Some of them will say, the Greys are wonderful and kind and whatever. Others will say they're horrible. I was told there was at least 165 species of Grey. So it's very difficult to pick one out and say, well, that represents the rest of the Grey species. I think there are many different ones, and maybe many, many agendas. And the same goes with a lot of the other species as well. The person themselves will know whether someone they're interacting with on that level feels okay or not. And that's what we're having to start to trust now more than anything else, rather than the information we're being fed.
Some of the, I want to get, I've got like 2 minutes left with you, so we're out of time. With some of the communication that has been out there with channelers or, ships in orbit around planet Earth and this constant contact, what did the children say about some of the other adults out there that are sharing their experiences? What have you found out about that, and who can you trust?
It's a very good question, and I'm going to have to be succinct here. The children will often channel themselves. They will bring in through information and what have you. The channel is only as good as their channel. There are some that colour the information because they don't know how to keep it as clear or have the clarity as others do. But certainly the children know there are many adults out there that are trying to help them, that are being given information to assist this planet, to evolve. I'm losing my voice here.
It's okay.
But the bottom line is, I think we're being taught to learn resonance and discernment. And that's the big one, is that you listen to information coming through. If it feels right for you and ticks the boxes, then that's fine, isn't it? You can go with that. There is other times where you listen to, it's like somebody giving you advice. You'll listen to some advice and you'll dismiss it because it just doesn't feel right to you. The same with all channeled material. Some of it is excellent and some of it is really useful. There's others that's very lackluster and perhaps, I wouldn't give it the time of day. This is, again, about us trusting the contactee or the channeler that is in contact. And depending on how discerning they are, that's the other thing too, is that you get some that are a lot more gullible than others and will believe anything just because it's coming through them. They also have a responsibility to sense and feel and intuit and to the resonance of who it is that's there with them. Very, very important, because we're going to be operating multidimensionally. We have to learn how to do that, just like the shaman, that goes into his multi or her multidimensional space, has to learn the ones that are the beings that are of a high frequency and high awareness and are there for our benefit, and for the ones that have that are parasitic or just having their own agenda. This is what we're being taught, and this is what the children are being taught as well. Yeah, that's interesting. I hope they're being taught that don't trust adults because they have their own agenda. And I think that's an interesting point with all of this. They haven't grown up enough to have their own agenda, to be chasing money or to be doing this for adulation or trying to become a celebrity. None of that comes into play here. We're dealing with very young children, and therefore there isn't the adult agenda behind what they are trying to share with us, right? Absolutely, and that's why I've devoted half my book to them, because they're too young. They don't watch talk shows. They don't read books on this. Right. This is coming from an integrity and a clarity of their experience and their knowing. Right. Mary, thank you so much. Really quick before I say goodnight and say thank you, where can everybody contact you? What's the easiest way to go? Obviously not Twitter, right? Oh, look, Facebook, or just Google me. I've got two websites, maryrodwell.com.au or acern.com.au. Either one, you can contact me from those websites. It's really easy. And what about experiencer.org? Can they contact you through there? Oh, they certainly can, through the free organization, absolutely, as well, because I get those sent to me as well. So it's really, really easy. Any of those will do. And are you coming stateside anytime soon? There is a possibility. Nothing is set in stone yet, but there's always a possibility of coming over there. I also hope to do the UK next year as well, so we'll see. I can't wait to hang out with you and just have a drink. It would just be a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much, Mary. Absolute pleasure, Jimmy. It's I really enjoyed speaking with you. Thank you very much for inviting me. You're the very best, Mary. Be safe out there. Thank you. Good night. Good night. Mary Rodwell. Well, I just said good night to her because it's 9:30 here. I believe it's like noon or so over in Australia. Thank you so much, Mary. Fascinating conversation. It is acern.com.au, maryrodwell.com.au, and, of course, experiencer.org. All of the links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Take a little break. I'll be right back. Take some phone calls and do all of the news that you know absolutely nothing about. I'll be right back.
Hey, what up, y'all? It's your girl Vivica Fox here, and you are listening to my boy, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
So you went to dinner last night and you had your favorite pasta. Ugh. Or maybe you had a heavy, spicy meal and it left you. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Maybe you mowed down a huge steak and your plumbing is all plugged. Ugh. Get the tea.com. Our super strength tea will take care of your occasional. Ugh. It's all organic and non-GMO. Get rid of ugh. We have so many great supplements, but our super tea is number one. GetTheT.com. That's GetTheT.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of fade to black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy. What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129 and use the promo code JCRTWS and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to jimmychurchradio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRAradio.com.
This is KJCR at jimmychurchradio.com.
All right, welcome back. What a conversation. Mary Rodwell. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and, of course, KGRA The Planet. You can follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Fascinating conversation. There is something going on. Go watch Gods Among Us. And when you get to the part, the entire film is fascinating, and you know the science of contact and how science is looking into this. And Caroline Corey presents it in such a fashion. It's an incredible film. But when it comes to Zach and Anthony and this generation of children that are experiencing contact and how Zach and Anthony speak on such an intelligent level, there's something going on here. I presented the question. I've opened up the phone lines, by the way, 323-825-5045 or 323-275-9695. When it comes to the idea of having a documentary put together with 10 or 20 of these children speaking directly to the camera about their experiences, what would the world say to that? What would the world say? Would it be viewed in a negative sense? And I think that we're getting into a dangerous territory here. We have the innocence of children speaking honestly. We have that part of it. But I just feel that there would be a criticism of doing this. I think it needs to be done. There is something going on here. The experiences of an adult and I get phone calls and I'm speaking to people. I've had my own experiences and I know that there's something going on. And I speak to an adult about it. They could have had access to a lifelong library of documentaries, of books, of television, of movies. There's an influence that happens there, and that could result in a subconscious thing that is happening. My experiences have all been in real time with witnesses, except for that thing in my room many years ago. But other than that, my experiences have all been real. When we are talking about a child, as a parent, I don't know how to react to this. I really don't. If my daughters, and they haven't, by the way, came to me with some of these experiences and spoke to me about it, I would be in shock, right? And that's how I think the world would respond to this. I think it's very, very interesting, and there is something going on here. Again, 323-825-5045, 323-275-9695. Do you agree with me? I think that a documentary like this needs to be done. Mary is right on the forefront of all of this. When everybody here knows about my reaction to Zach and Anthony in this film. When we go back to Zimbabwe and you go back to Mac's original interviews with these kids, and they're out there and they're archived, you got there and you watch those, and it's touching and mind-blowing at the same time. And there's just something that we get from a child that is different from an adult. We trust a child. They haven't had that influence. It's just fascinating. Fascinating. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Let's go to the phones. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Marie calling from San Jose, Jimmy.
How are you, Marie, from San Jose? Everything good? What'd you think of the show tonight?
It hit so close to home with regards to my son, who's 13. And, I've struggled with the school system because my son was born with something called an auditory processing disorder, which means that he listens and hears and processes very different from other kids. He's incredibly smart. He can pull things apart, put things back together. He just processes differently. But as I was in the system from kindergarten all the way up, I would get packets of information where the school would ask me these bizarre questions like, does your child hear voices? Does he see things? Does he see people that are not there? I mean, these prolonged questions. Every year I'd be asked these questions, and I would obviously, say no. But because my son would say things like, yeah, Mom, I could see, I see the ghost in my room, Mom. Because my son would disappear sometimes in his head and then come back with these ideas.
How old?
And I'd always, since 5.
Right.
And the ideas would get progressively more complicated as he's 13 now. So as he's grown up, the ideas would get more complicated, a little bit more sophisticated. He'd come back and he'd tell me things about life and death. And he'd look at me and he'd come back and he'd like, Mom, people have got it wrong. There is no hell or heaven. Oh my God, Mom, people have it wrong. He'd come back and he'd go into this little zone again, and he'd come back and like, Mom, there is no past or future or present. It's all the same, Mom. And I think when that came out, that one, he was 7 years old. We were driving and, he zoned out and came back and gave me that. And I just, smiled and the sad part about this is he knows he's different. He knows he can't share things, and he knows it's lonely.
Have you reached out to Mary?
I'm going to have to, because this is and then I'm in I work with a lot of, let's just say spiritual groups and stuff like that, and obviously UFO communities and stuff. And anytime I bring my son, everyone says something different. he's special or something. I mean, they see his vibe, and I just get these reactions. And me being a mom who likes to protect him, I just don't want him, to be exposed. Although he understands that whole world. He knows your voice, and he's listened to some of the talks that you have. And he'll watch cartoons, and he'll tell me, Mom, I'm watching these cartoons, and everything that I'm hearing, Mom, they're putting it out there in cartoons. So a lot of things that Mary said just resonated tonight. It was pretty interesting, and I thought I'd call and kind of share that and see if any other parents have, who are listening, have kids that are like that too, because I know I'm not the only one.
What's your son?
I know I'm not the only one.
Yeah, what's your son's name? You can say his first name because I'm going to give him a shout out right now.
David. His name is David.
What's up, David?
That's all you do. Flip him out.
That's all you got to do. But it sounds like, see, the first thing, he understands that you're pretty cool, and he gets that part of it. Do you feel that he's comfortable enough to just tell you anything? And David,
absolutely.
Okay, David, if you're listening, just tell your mom everything, man. Don't hold back. Don't hold back.
He will tell me all of it, and I've created an environment where it's safe, where he can tell me as strange as it can be, as bizarre as for the common person. He can say anything, positive or negative. It doesn't matter. So if he wants to challenge something about church, let him challenge it.
Right.
I welcome it.
And how
I want him to challenge it all.
And how are you as a mom that you've gone through this? Are you cool with it?
Absolutely.
Right on.
I have a strong child. I have a strong kid, and I grew up with a mother who is, my mom's side of the family, we're all intuitive. But I grew up with a mother who was incredibly, she's too into the church, I suppose, and Catholic church, and so everything is bad.
Right.
So I don't want that for my son.
Right.
I don't want the fear that I grew up with.
Right. Yeah.
The things that I saw.
Then he stops talking, right? He stops opening up.
I stopped talking.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Wow, Maria, what a fascinating phone call, and thank you for that, and for being so open and honest. And yeah, reach out to Mary. You never know; he may be willing to talk to her directly, and she can, ask the right questions, and just let him know that he's cool, right? And that's what's most important.
Mm-hmm. I think I might. Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jimmy.
Yeah, thank you. You too, Maria. Thank you for the phone call. Absolutely fascinating with that. And part of hearing from a parent, that's exactly how I feel. Right there, spot on the money. But I haven't had those conversations. I remember, I'll tell you guys something funny. Nicole was probably 3 years old. She's in the back seat in the baby seat. I'm driving, and she says to me, she said, "Daddy," and she's like 3. We're having real conversations, and she goes, "Daddy, I want to open up a restaurant, and I want to make burgers, and I want my And she went through this whole thing and described the menu to me. And I was blown away. And so I was like, wow, where is this coming from? And I don't know if it was the next day, but it was very soon after that. We were watching SpongeBob on TV, and then the restaurant was there, and the menu was disclosed, and it all came from that. And I was so, in a weird way, I was relieved. I was like, okay, she's learning, she's watching these cartoons, and she's repeating it to me, and she's being creative, and I was cool with it. But the other part of it was that I now needed to be aware of possibly if she said something to me that it wasn't from her creativeness. And I'm talking about maybe a ghost in her bedroom or somebody living in her closet, that maybe she would get something from television and that would be instilled in her and she would repeat it to me. I would believe it as being real, but maybe she got it from a cartoon or from a movie or so forth. And I'm telling you from my own experience, what happened with me was SpongeBob SquarePants. And it was just one of those things. So I was very aware. But with both of our daughters, nothing strange ever happened. I'm just telling you guys right now. When I say strange, there was never those conversations about their invisible friend. Never had that with our kids. So there you go. Thank you for sharing that, Maria. Just an absolutely fascinating thing. There's something going on with these children, and when you see Zach speak, or children like him, when you see him speak and you listen to him, there is an intelligence here, man. It's rocket science, physicist level knowledge that is happening from somebody that is very, very young. And again, the film is God's Among Us, and Mary's part in the film is absolutely fascinating. So go check it out. And, of course, the film is directed and written by Caroline Corey. With that, let me get to some of the news that you may know nothing about. And the first thing that I'm going to share with you is Senator Al Franken. Now, we all love Al from Saturday Night Live. He was great. He was funny. One of the writers. His appearances on there were absolutely hilarious. But now he's a senator. And he has canceled his upcoming appearance on Real Time with Bill Maher. Franken changed his plans to appear on the show after Maher used the N-word on his show last week. A spokesman for the former Saturday Night Live writer says that the senator feels Maher's words were just inappropriate and offensive. It wasn't funny at all. There is, in my opinion, there is never a time or a place to use that word. And even as a comedian, and I get it, you're pushing boundaries, and Bill can push it. He can. But he went way over the line. And I know that those two guys are friends. The comedian world, everybody respects each other out there. They're all friends. They're all buddies, and they talk at another level that you and I know nothing about. And I get that, and I understand it. But Al Franken absolutely took the right position here. And there you go. All right, so he's canceled his upcoming appearance. Now, the United States Air Force has asked Congress for nearly $11 billion in additional funds for a bunch of stuff. F-35 fighter jets, some tankers, laser weapons, and they need to modernize some older planes. Now, check this out. The Air Force's wish list includes $1.76 billion for 14 more F-35A fighters made by Lockheed Martin, in addition to the 46 currently covered by the budget proposal. They want another $1.3 billion, which would buy a dozen MC-130J special operations tankers and one additional HC-130J search and rescue plane, both based on, of course, Lockheed's C-130 platform. But this is where it gets whack. An additional $70 million would be used on a game-changing prototype, a directed energy weapon with the ability, I got to clear my throat for this, to disable electronic systems. Right? Okay. And this is where it gets really dark. The wish list also includes an additional $772 million for space programs. Interesting, right? Very interesting. And they made this public. So they needed they've got all these military budget increases, but the United States Air Force wants an additional $11 billion, and nearly $1 billion of it for their space programs. The secret space programs. Yeah. Thought you'd enjoy that. Now, also, happened yesterday. Bahrain, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Yemen have now cut diplomatic ties with Qatar, accusing Qatar of supporting terrorism. RITA, Saudi Arabia, also accused Qatar of supporting Iranian-backed militants. The eastern-based government of Libya was next. And that was according to the foreign minister, Mohammed Dari, they announced that they were cutting ties. And then the Maldives followed suit. What is going on in the Middle East? This is getting really dark. Several airlines based in the United Arab Emirates have said that they will stop flying between Dubai and Doha starting today. And that includes Air Emirates, Etihad, Fly Dubai, and Air Arabia. No more flights to Qatar. Saudi Arabian Airlines has also suspended all flights to Qatar. All ports are now closed to any ships from Qatar, and all citizens of Qatar have 14 days to leave each country. This is very, very serious. I don't know. I don't. I've read everything that I can out of the Middle East as direct as I can. I've been trying to avoid the mainstream media on this and trying to get to the government's true positions here. Coming on the heels of Trump's visit to Saudi Arabia and some of the other, could there be something there with that? I don't know. With what is going on in Syria, and we have Iran directly involved with that. We have Iran's nuclear program that is also in play here, and for all of this to happen at the same time, it virtually closes out Qatar from every neighbor that they have. What is going on? What is it that they know? Is Qatar directly backing ISIS? All of this could be fictitious mainstream media BS. We don't know. We simply don't know. But for this to go public and so dark so quickly, expelling Qatar citizens, you have 14 days to pack your bags and get out of the country. And to close down all air traffic and all shipping lanes. Think about that. Crazy, crazy stuff right now going down in the Middle East. Also today, breaking news. A federal contractor was arrested over the weekend and accused of leaking a classified report containing top secret level information on Russian hacking efforts during the 2016 presidential election. Her name, Reality Lay Winner. She's 25 years old. She appeared in U.S. District Court in Augusta, Georgia, to face one charge of removing classified material from a government facility and mailing it to a news outlet. And that's all according to the Justice Department today. Winner's arrest was announced shortly after The Intercept, the website, published a story detailing how Russian hackers attacked at least one U.S. voting software supplier and sent so-called spear phishing emails to more than 100 local election officials at the end of October or the beginning of November. The Justice Department did not specify that Winner was being charged in connection with the Intercept's report. However, and there's always a however, The site noted that the National Security Agency reported, their report cited in its story that it was dated May 5th of this year. An affidavit supporting Winter's arrest also said that the report was dated on or about May 5th. The Intercept contacted the NSA and the National Intelligence Director's Office about the document. They wanted to know if the document was real, and both agencies asked that it not be published. The U.S. intelligence officials then asked the Intercept to redact certain sections. The Intercept said that some material was withheld at the U.S. intelligence agency's request because it wasn't clearly, and I'm quoting here, clearly in the public interest. Now, we have a couple of things here. First off, the Intercept disclosing a source, right? You're protected in that area. That's the first thing. So, is the Intercept protected? Or did the Intercept know that they had a stolen document in their possession that was clearly stolen? And therefore, contacting the NSA and disclosing who the document came from? Don't know at this point. They certainly now. I've read 3 different accounts here. Was it snail mail? Did this contractor, Reality Lay Winner, did she download it, print it, and put it in an envelope and mail it to the Intercept, which is completely stupid and idiotic. How dumb do you have to be? You will be caught in a New York nanosecond there, right? So that feels funky to me. I'm not saying it didn't happen. What I'm saying is how dumb can somebody be? Now, so did the Intercept not have to reveal? Because apparently there were only 6 contractors that downloaded this document and had access to it, and they were able to identify her very, very quickly. Second, what was the intention? It wasn't a massive data dump. It was just one piece, right? One report. It's just a fascinating mistake. Unless there's something else going on. I haven't quite put my finger on it, but there you go. All right, this is Fade to Black. We have concluded another Monday. Want to thank Mary Rodwell. Absolutely fascinating conversation tonight. And Maria from San Jose. What a phone call. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Camarion. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee, Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Fady by Dale. Webmaster, Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network, and syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2017 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. It cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I am your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Tomorrow night, right here, Michael Lee Hill and the Bigelow Aerospace Connection. Until then, I want everybody to be safe. Go back, Lee Tappy.